I think our colleague summed it up very eloquently, when he said it was epic. To get a full spectrum view, or what felt like a full spectrum view of the just of the dynamic and diverse nature of this whole system, and how much actually goes on, was just unbelievably enriching, right? So, and as I said many times over this period, the passion of the people, and the constant striving for that perfect net zero,
Yeah.
if I can paraphrase you, effect of this water utility.
I mean, certainly this opportunity was the amount of breadth, and like how that was all compressed into this very short time span was quite impressive, and I think it allowed you to sort of, we're sort of set with this challenge to understand this system that is so massive and has, such wide-reaching consequences, and so many components to it, and agents, and actions and results, and to be able to sort of quickly perceive these concepts and these abstractions in a very literal, material sense, with all these added sensations, and seeing that these direct connections was, on the one hand, it was very helpful, but it helped demystify a lot of things for me, and but it also, as functioning as something that generated many more questions, I think is what's important about it.
So I guess in this week has been a really incredible kind of mass of information and experiences, seeing wonderful places from the Blow Glacier to downstream, seeing all this infrastructure and talking to the people who operate it. It's something quite amazing that I'm sure you can't buy that kind of experience, whatever. It's, we're very privileged and lucky to have been able to see all this and hear all the things we have. And for me, it ties in, I guess, with a whole load of the research within my work, looking at systems particularly, and these dynamic systems. And that's one of the things that struck me, I think, the most about this whole thing, is how interconnected everything is, and how little changes here have effects here, and all these overlaid systems, whether it's the river system in itself, which is its dynamic changing system, the mains water system, which is this pressurized system with all these pumping stations controlled, all at different pressures in different areas of the city, and the way that if you have a main break here, they can channel things a different route. Then you've got the sewer system, a totally separate system there, and then the stormwater as well. That's again a different system, and all of those systems, or large parts of it, come from the river originally. Well, it all comes from the river originally, and eventually all goes back to the river in a clean state. Yeah, it's been it's been a very intense week. It's been great.
I applied to this because of the process. I'm really interested in water, and I'm really interested in dynamic systems, but I haven't seen such an intelligently written brief for a really long time. and I work in a really speculative, open way. I need time to think. I can't deliver a brief always, and so actually a process that allowed for that and fed it with really strong pieces of information and experience, I thought would actually just let me think. So I applied to it because I thought it was exemplary. And part of the conversation I had prior to applying was about, is there lots of this going on in Canada? And it's a model of commissioning that I recognise from, there was some of it around 10 years ago, and then it disappeared as people became more risk averse. And so I was just really excited.
Well, I've done 3 projects since 2009. One about drinking water, one about stormwater, and the other about wastewater, and they're all in Seattle system. So there are a couple things that I was drawn to here. One is this is a different country, different system. I would get to sort of compare and see differences and look at them. But then the bigger reason was this idea of the dynamic environment, so that I've been looking at the context I've been looking at water in Seattle didn't really include this notion as much, or a different kind of dynamic environment. We have different issues. We have different, living on the coast, we have a whole different weather pattern, different problems. So I was really curious to know, well, what is it like to live on a river that you're sharing with other people? We don't share our river in Seattle or water with other people. It just comes to our city. So it's and then it goes to the Puget Sound. So it's I was just curious, what's this all going to look like? And the idea that I'm sitting right here, at lunch with Chris and Russ, and I now know them in a way that I could call them up almost individually. I mean, Chris said, let me know. So it's, I've been introduced to this world, and not just to Chris, obviously, but to all these different parts, and not just the people, but the landscape. So, the idea that we went to, up to where the water's coming from and to where it's going, and we did that first before we even get into the city. It really helps me kind of think about how to think about approaching the project, and that's not something I've ever been able to do before.